Welcome to the first edition of The Week That Was in Politics for the year 2025. I look forward to continuing to reflect on what the South African political landscape has to offer. Now, on that note, the bastion of our country's legal order came into sharp focus this week, but for all the wrong reasons. There are also several royal battles taking place. To the north, the Rain Queen's ascension to the throne is under threat, while on the east coast of the country, the courts are being asked to stop the Zulu king from taking another wife. I'm Ziyanda Ngcobo, and I'll be giving you the roundup of this week's top political stories. It was a cringeworthy start to the week as the Judicial Conduct Tribunal heard evidence in the sexual harassment matter brought against Eastern Cape Judge President Selby Mbenenge. He's accused of sending raunchy and inappropriate photos to his secretary, Andiswa Mbengo, who lodged the complaint against him. Graphic details of private conversations between the two entered the public domain when the 10-day hearings began this week. This includes an accusation by Mbengo that her boss sent explicit pictures of his private parts and was soliciting oral sex from her.
Few messages after your response there came two messages through at 22:59 from the respondent that was deleted, and you replied to that. And can we get a translation of that?
The translation of the message on 22:59 written Jesu. It's Jesus.
Can you recall what the messages was that was deleted that you had to reply with this way?
One of them was a private part.
Male or female?
It was a male private part.
Can you recall what the other one was?
No, I don't recall.
Then at 11 o'clock, the respondent sent 3 messages again that was deleted. And just beneath that, there was a message that the respondent replied to on one of his own messages. And it looks like it must have been one of those that were deleted, where he said, "Yours, please," with 2 eyes looking. He replied to that with the 2 eyes. What was he referring to when he said, "Yours, please"?
He was referring to my private part.
Mbengo faced pointed questions about the semantics of messages that she too would have sent to Mbenenge and what she meant. She added that at some point she even quoted the Bible to her boss, hoping that the 63-year-old church leader would come to his senses and refrain from trying to pursue an intimate relationship with her.
I see there's a sticker depicted there. It's a woman sitting with her head in one face, and it looks like the woman is laughing.
Yes, I see.
Please explain to us, what did you mean by sending this?
I was saying that I do not want to engage in what he sent me. This was also my no to what he was saying.
A minute later, after you posted that sticker, you posted the 5 monkey faces closing their eyes in reply to his message that was sent at 22:48, which was translated to, "Do you just want friendship?" Just explain to us this emojis that you used. Why did you use that, and what did you mean by that?
I was embarrassed about what he had said. And secondly, I did not know how to respond, since the fact that he is my boss and he is a respectable man.
During Thursday's hearings, proceedings had to be adjourned at least 4 times after Mbengo broke down in tears.
Can I get a moment, Chair, please?
She's asking for a moment, please.
I see she's emotional again, my lord.
As text messages between the Eastern Cape Judge President and herself were read out.
In fact, at 16 minutes past 11, he took you back to the earlier conversation where he told you, "Please reciprocate."
Ewe kunjalo.
Yes, that's correct.
And when you did not reply, he said a minute later at 17 minutes past 11, don't be tricky.
Kunjalo.
That is correct.
How did this day's messages, the conversation that took place that day, how did that make you feel?
Ibendidika.
It was annoying, and it made me look at myself and see myself as a dirty person.
The tribunal, chaired by former Johannesburg Judge President Bernard Ngwebe, was established after Mengo filed a complaint with the Judicial Conduct Committee in January 2023. In September last year, the JCC found that there was a prima facie case of gross judicial misconduct and recommended the appointment of a Judicial Conduct Tribunal. By December, the Judicial Service Commission upheld the JCC recommendation and instructed the Chief Justice to establish a body. Meanwhile, Mbenenge maintains his innocence, claiming that the messages between the two were consensual. He's expected to testify before the tribunal next week. It's been just over a month since President Cyril Ramaphosa recognized Masalanabo Mojaji as the Queen of the Balobedu Nation. There's been no shortage of reaction, which has by and large been mixed. Earlier this week, the Mojaji Royal Council rejected the recognition of Masalanabo as the next monarch, saying that the government failed to consult the family before making this crucial announcement. The council is spearheaded by Prince Lekukela Mojaji, Masalanabo's elder brother and contender of the throne.
Let me indicate that indeed that unprecedented and a very compromising decision by the presidency has not only shocked us, but also made us very angry. And as a result, you are right when you say the royal family, the royal council have come to a logical conclusion that we are holding the bull by its horns. We are taking this matter to court for reprieve.
Staying with royal matters, the AmaZulu nation is about to witness a legal showdown between King Misuzulu Kazwelithini and one of his wives. The High Court in Pietermaritzburg will on Monday hear an urgent interdict brought by one of the king's wives in an attempt to halt his wedding to a third spouse. Last week, the royal household announced the Zulu monarch would be marrying Queen Nomzamo Myeni at the end of this month.
24 January. Kuyobe sekuba umkhehlo khona kudlule ilanga la mhla 25 njengoba sazi nabesile ukuthi Ingonyama na uNdlunkulu umyeni bayikhethele ukuthi bangaba ngamalunga ebandla lamaNazaretha. Umsebenzi waNgonyama ubusenziwa ngesonto umsebenzi omkhulu ke lapho odinga isizwe sonke sikaZulu ukuthi siphelele amakhosi aseNdlunkulu aphelele iNdlunkulu yonke ukuthi iphelele lapho kube sokusuku olukhulu lomgcaco.
But a current royal wife claims she was not consulted and argues that because her marriage with the king is a civil union, any other planned wedding ceremonies will be null and void. There's never been a divorce in the Zulu royal household, but the incumbent's grandfather, King Cyprian Begu Zulu, did separate from his two wives for a new love. If the two wedding ceremonies with Myeni go ahead, she'll be the first spouse of King Misuzulu Kazwelithini, who will have completed all due traditional processes, bolstering her position in the royal house. But that's not the only drama the AmaZulu monarch faces. Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Land Reform plans to conduct an oversight visit to the Ingonyama Trust Board in an attempt to resolve the fiduciary challenges faced by the entity. A standoff between Minister Mzwanele Nyonso and the AmaZulu monarch has been escalating over the Ingonyama Trust. In December, the monarch suspended board members, But the minister says this was unlawful and has called for more accountability when it comes to the financial standing of the entity.
The responsibility to appoint board members, dissolve the board or remove some board members, that responsibility rests with the minister. It can't be about the king. Remember, the king is also the chairperson of the board.
The Ingonyama Trust Act of 1994 has always been a contentious issue that has consistently set the ruling Zulu monarch against the government of the day. The legislation came about when then IFP President, the late Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, threatened to pull out of South Africa's first democratic elections unless King Goodwill Zwelithini Kabheka Zulu was recognized in the new constitutional dispensation. That situation heralded the birth of the Ingonyama Trust, which is meant to administer land on behalf of the Zulu nation.
The Inkatha Freedom Party's Central Committee decided at a meeting on Sunday, the 17th of April, to contest the elections at the national and provincial levels if amendments to the Constitution could be made to secure the Kingdom of KwaZulu and the future of His Majesty the King of the Zulus as a constitutional monarch. The decision of the Central Committee was further made conditional upon the final formulations for provisions for the existence of the Zulu Kingdom and the role of His Majesty being agreed to through mediation.
But as the years went by, the government had questions about how the Zulu nation and occupants of the nearly 3 million hectares of land benefited from this act, which falls outside the bounds of state reform. In 2018, a high-level panel report led by former President Kgalema Motlanthe found that the trust was failing to account for the rent collected from residents who leased the land.
They were forced to sign these leases with the Ingonyama Trust, which provided that they must pay annual rents, that the rents would go up 10% a year, and that if they failed to pay the rent, they would be evicted. So, the panel investigated this and saw that people were being forced to take out these leases under duress, that actually they were told that if they didn't sign these leases, they would be evicted. And clearly that was unconstitutional and in breach of the Act itself.
With the government of national unity seemingly remaining intact for over 6 months now, other opposition parties who don't form part of the GNU are also looking for allies. This will be interesting to watch in the coming months as political formations gear up for next year's 2026 local government elections. It was no surprise then that Action SA announced that it would be joining hands with the Forum for Service Delivery, which has its origins in grassroots activism in the Northwest.
What Action SA and Forum for Service Delivery are here to communicate this morning is not the start and end of a journey. It is an agreement to merge and start what will be a concerted drive to consolidate like-minded political formations over time, particularly ahead of the 2026 local government elections, to facilitate the take-back of local government from uncaring, opportunistic parties, to bring it into the hands of men and women who will be carefully selected based on their abilities, qualifications, and dedications to serve the much abused people of our country.
And for the first time, Action SA has a deputy president. Mbahari Kekana is now the party's second in command after Herman Mashaba.
We will take those municipalities in the honor of Mangope.
When we return, we look at the big week that was for South Africa's youngest Minister for Education, Siviwe Kwagube. There's been much debate about whether the class of 2024's historic matric results of 87.3% can be attributed to Kwagube, who's only been in the post for just over 6 months. So whose success is this anyway? Welcome back. Thank you for staying tuned to Newzroom Afrika on channel 405. As promised, we're in conversation then with Siviwe Kwahube, the country's youngest education minister, and she had the grace of having to announce the historic matric results for the class of 2024. Minister, thank you so much for your time today. Let's reflect then on this fate that has been achieved. It's historic, record-breaking. And this particular group of learners started their high school journey at the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, you're the youngest minister, education minister. You had that moment to announce this, these matric results, but also you're a minister in the government of national unity. Just reflect on those dynamics and what it felt like to be on that stage this week.
Firstly, I think a massive congratulations to the class of 2024, Ziyanda. As you said, they started their high school at the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in fact had lost a lot of learning and teaching time as a result. And so there has been a lot of interventions to try and get them to catch up with the curriculum. Of course, the ideal teaching and learning time every year is essentially 230 days, 8 hours a day. And so once you start messing with that, then it means that you're not going to be able to necessarily cover your curriculum. And so I want to congratulate them, and also want to congratulate the educators who went far beyond the call of duty to make sure that those learners really, really caught up. And then, of course, I think one of the things that I was just reflecting on that day is that no matric result is ever achieved, within months of work. It has been years in the making, and it was very important for me to also pay tribute to ministers who've come before me, who have laid the foundation that has now led to an incremental sort of progress that we are seeing in the education system in our country. And so it's quite important that we reflect on that. Otherwise, then it's slightly disingenuous to kind of believe that somehow, within 6 months, you would have had, a massive impact on that result. So it really does, it is credit that belongs to predecessors, it belongs to educators, it belongs to learners, it belongs to parents and communities who've supported this class of 2024. And as I said, it really was incredible to stand there and be able to tell South Africans good news about our education system, which is often not reflected upon enough.
Sitting here now, what do you know at this moment that you didn't know then when you were sworn in as education minister?
There's so much. I think firstly, one of the most humbling things, Ziyanda, for me is understanding the complexity of the system, how big it is, the 13.5 million learners, the 500,000 educators, district directors, officials. It is a massive, massive, intricate system. And secondly, I think what I also didn't know is just how many, because anecdotally, we've all interacted with teachers at some time in our lives. And so our experience with teachers is anecdotal, but realizing just how much South Africa is actually blessed with some really good teachers, people who you will find them in the most far-flung areas of the country, just really dedicated and making sure, in spite of the difficult challenges that we face, that they are really, really putting their heart and soul into it. And then, of course, I didn't realize, Ziyanda, just how bad our financial troubles were as a country, how we need to really hit the reset button on spending priorities as a country, and just really how in the red our education system is in, and how many provinces are struggling. As we speak, I mean, I am constantly in a state of anxiety because I worry about, have provinces delivered all textbooks and stationery to schools? Are we going to be able to make sure that all the 9.7 million learners who need a meal every single day are receiving it? Are we making sure that all learners who deserve and need scholar transport, almost 1 million children around South Africa need scholar transport? Are provinces able to meet their financial obligations? These things are real threats to the system. And so there's a lot I didn't know. And but yeah, what a rewarding 7 months.
But in this moment, in the last couple of months, who've been those who've been in your corner, assisting you? From my perspective, I'd say your deputy has been there for you. She once assisted to quell a tense situation with teachers. But maybe you've also got others who've been assisting.
And you know what? One of the most amazing discoveries as well that I have realized is that one of the unspoken things about the transition in our democracy this year is just how we talk a lot about how unprofessional the public service is. And yes, those concerns are real. But Ziyanda, for every unprofessional public servant, there are thousands of people who simply get up every day to go to work, and they literally just want to do the best for their country. And that for me has been the most heartwarming realization when I walked into the Department of Basic Education, not knowing a soul. Literally
Coming from the DA?
Coming from the DA, being young, not knowing a soul. And people were just excited. They were like, we haven't had a new minister in a decade and a half. We're keen to see what you're going to do. Some people obviously were a little bit, will she succeed? Is she, the usual stuff, is she not too young? Is she not too sensitive? Is she not going to, break down and go cry every night? So I just think asking, being open to learning, and being humble enough to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Show me. There are MECs who've been in the sector for many years, including my deputy, who's been an MEC, who's been a teacher, who's been in the sector for many. So saying, I don't know, I would love to know. And now 7 months later, Ziyanda, you can wake me up in the middle of the night. I can tell you the things that are working well in the education system.
Don't tempt me.
And the things that don't work
Do
well.
not tempt me, Minister.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I mean, that's great, but I'm sure you will also remember in the last 7 months, the talk around the Bella Bill, which is now the Bella Act, you not showing up for that signing ceremony, debates around how this government of national unity is being managed. And this week, AfriForum Solidarity and the Solidarity Support Center wrote letters to you and the president because they are legally taking up the Bella Act in its current form. And I guess the criticism that they've lodged against you is that you went against your own advice. They say that you had written to the president and expressed concerns about the bill at the time in its current form, and yet now here you are still continuing, and they've given you 10 days to respond.
Yes, I've seen the challenge that from Solidarity. And so really, Ziyanda, for me, I mean, I want to reiterate my commitment at the end of last year that yes, I had made recommendations to the president.
Yeah.
And I had said, Mr. President, my view is that we don't commence with these sections of the Act until regulations are in place. The president decided to commence with the Act while regulations are being developed. And so I co-signed and countersigned with him. And so really my view is that I made a commitment at the end of last year to say, first of all, it's very important for us to draw the line now, Ziyanda, underneath the Bella Bill and the controversy and the politics around it. It's very important for me to protect our schools and our learners from the politicking that happens around this bill.
Yeah.
The schools have started. We are in the process of developing guidelines that will go to schools to guide them on how do they implement certain sections of this act that now bring new sort of obligations to them. The drafting of regulations is well underway, and I really want us to really draw the line now and say, here is an act, here are regulations. What we're going to make sure is that nobody abuses any of the provisions of this act for political means.
Did you at any point feel like you were torn between serving at the pleasure of the president and ensuring that your party, the DA, is also happy with you?
Well, no, not really, Ziyanda, because I think also there's an understanding within my political party that we've always upheld the view that we are a party of the rule of law. And so even when, right at the beginning, even before the Bella Act was signed into law, I was very clear to say, while my political party has been clear about its opposition to certain sections of this act, of this bill, should it be signed into law, there is absolutely no legal recourse or no circumstances under which I can say I will not implement the bill and I will not implement the act. And my party gets that. And also I think at the end of last year, there was a lot of discussion in the Government of National Unity Clearinghouse. And I think what really the contention around the Bella Bill also helped to do is that it helped to crystallize and almost help to form that clearinghouse in the GNU, because while it had been spoken about theoretically in the statement of intent of the forming of the GNU. It never had been tested, and so this was important. There's no scenario in which 10 political parties are going to agree with about everything. So it was important that now this clearinghouse is being tested. So I think that's probably what the good that came from that. When there are any other policy differences in the future, well, now people will know how to deal with it because, Bella walked so they could run.
All right, that's Minister Siviwe Kwagube. A big week for our education minister, the youngest to ever hold that position. That's a wrap of the week that was in politics. Stay tuned to Newzroom Afrika channel 405. Next week, I'll be coming to you from the field in KwaZulu-Natal. We'll be keeping a close eye on King Misuzulu Zwelithini and whether or not he'll forge ahead with those 2 planned wedding ceremonies, or will the courts decide otherwise? Thank you for watching.